Hello, everyone, and welcome in. I am Matt Olson, and this is our first podcast episode of Beyond the Rankings in quite some time. Bunch of new changes here at 32 Beat Writers, all for the best, including this one right across from me on the screen here. Zeke, how are you, man?
Fantastic, dude. Thank you for having me be part of the team. I'm happy to kick off this new chapter and get the ball rolling on the whole fantasy chapter of 32 Beat Writers. Honestly, just humbled really to be here. And I'm still in shock every single day, that you guys reached out to me and just ready to talk fantasy and get the ball rolling on the season, honestly.
No, I hear you, man. I think, we're going to be bringing you guys, you're going to have Beyond the Rankings for fantasy. You're going to have Beyond the Beat Writer interviews. You're going to have Beyond the Tape with TJ, looking at the prospects breakdown and all of that, and just a full circle of content for you guys now. And we've always been so fantasy leaning that I think your addition on this team is just going to bring things full circle. So we're also happy to have you here and happy to have you on this first podcast.
Absolutely. And I guess I'll just talk a little bit about myself.
Yeah.
And I'll introduce myself to the crowd out there. My name is Zada Kensabedyan. I guess I got into fantasy because I started doing play charting for PFF. I started working late nights and doing college game play charting just because I'm a sicko for football. So that was about 2019. And I was really more about football back then. I was playing fantasy football. I have been since 2011. And somebody reached out to me one day and they asked, hey, do you want to come do some work for our site? And I said, no, I'm kind of good where I'm doing football. And I was like, you know what? Let's do it. I love fantasy. I'm always thinking about it. Let's do it. And then one thing led to another. And then I never had social media. I was on Twitter. I joined Twitter like in 2019, 2020. And I just said, I think I need to do this if I want to take this profession seriously. So I went on there. I uploaded a Word doc about, why you shouldn't draft Todd Gurley this year. And, that year he busted, and I wrote about why he was going to be bust. And I was like, all right, that's cool. Nobody read it. But, I even sent that as part of my resume to like a bunch of I sent it to Evan Silva. I sent it to the fantasy footballers. I was like, hey, this is the article. This is what I've done. And it was an accurate prediction. But it was it's a slow growth, and it was a lot of hard work, and the work's still continuing. And I think really honestly, like this time right now at 32 Beat Writers, I feel like this is actually like the real, this is the beginning of it, honestly. And this is I'm really just excited to be here.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of good things to come. I think that's the bigger part of this. We're 2 weeks out from the start of training camp, which is just amazing. Excuse me. I think that's the biggest probably scenario and event that we at 32 Beat Writers cover every year. Just constantly in the trenches with on the trenches might be a little bit of a dramatic approach, but constantly trying to source that information from you, from the beat writers who have boots on the ground. We had a new website launching next Monday. For those of you who have been kind of keeping tabs on that, it'll be Monday the 7th. So you'll see that go live. And I think the biggest news of the day is Darren Waller came out of retirement. So let's just put you on the spot real quick. What are your thoughts?
I mean, it kind of seems like a placeholder, I think, at tight end right now. And I think they're just telling themselves, if we need to kick the tires on Darren Waller, we can. He's 32 years old, which isn't incredibly old for a tight end. But, it's Darren Waller. He's had a lot of injury issues in the past throughout his career. He's got to get up to game speed. Hopefully he's still fit by the time he enters camp. There really weren't any realistic options. There was Julian Hill and just a bunch of kind of, blocking tight ends who don't have any real receiving upside. So, Darren Waller is their best case scenario. And I do think, as much as I like Malik Washington as their number 3, their pass blocking is still horrendous. Tua had like he had the quickest time to throw last year. He had to get the ball out quick, hence Jonnu Smith's like immense target share. And they still need somebody. They still need a blocking component to that. They just can't roll out there in 11-man personnel all the time. So yeah, I think Darren Waller will get looks as the receiving tight end, and you just never know. I mean, it was just it's really easy in that offense. I mean, we might be all laughing at it right now, but I mean, all he has to do is run like 6, 7, 8 yards, sit the ball. I mean, that's essentially what Jonnu Smith did all year.
Sure.
So I mean, pick him up, I guess. And PPR, tight end premium. I'm talking myself into it right now. I mean, like I'm on the other end of the spectrum when as opposed to like I didn't want anything to do with it before we started talking about it, but now it's starting to make sense to me. I'm like, hey, yeah, we could actually pick him up and it might be good.
No, it's funny. Like in the Discord chat today, people are like, yes, a couple year removed rap superstar tight end comes back to the game and is immediately the number one waiver wire pickup. It's I don't think anyone saw that one coming. So it's going to be curious to see how his ADP plays out. To your point, if Miami brings anyone else in. But I think the bigger thing today, and a great way just to start off this podcast series and whatnot, is just to dive as deep as possible, right? And so we're going to look at 3 deep, we'll call them sleepers, I guess, for lack of a better term, 3 deep guys that could be something. There's definitely one that I feel should be something, which happens to be the last guy on the list. But I think by the end of this, there should be some excitement, and we're going to go through what's exciting, what's not so exciting, and kind of give you that balance, kind of hear what we're hearing in camp, talk about what we've seen. Got a couple notes from TJ earlier about what he saw as a prospects and where they landed. So without further ado, our first guy on the board is LaJohntay Wester. So Z, what do we like?
Right. So, okay, LaJohntay Wester he's a true slot wide receiver, 5'10", 163 pounds, out of Colorado. He played the majority of about 3 years of his career at Florida Atlantic University before transferring to Colorado and playing alongside with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. Before he transferred in 2023, he led the AAC in receptions, receiving yards, and punt return yards per return. And this is kind of like where LaJohntay Wester starts to put a foothold into the Baltimore Ravens. So LaJohntay Wester right now at camp is primarily being used as a punt return, kick return specialist. He's very, very good at that. And it's your foot in the door as far as being a late round pick. If you can start off like that, I mean, it's the same way Isaiah Pacheco started off. It's the same way a lot of guys start off. It's how you get in. You got to work that late shift, right? You got to work the late shift to get those premium hours. So that's what LaJohntay Wester is doing right now. He's already catching passes from Lamar Jackson in camp and putting time in with the first team offense. What's noticeable about LaJohntay Wester is that constant development and growth and success, right? I mean, at Colorado, he finished second in receiving yards to Travis Hunter, right? So he was second on that team, Travis Hunter, as a slot wide receiver. He's a small guy, but he's on a team with an awesome quarterback with a really solid structure of coaching staff and organization. They can do really good things with him, good creativity. He has past experience with some of the members on that coaching staff. They know who he is as a player, right? It's just like this is why I love Malik Washington coming into the league, because Malik Washington played at Northwestern before transferring to Virginia Tech, which is a little bit more stiffer competition. Not so much more, but a little bit stiffer. And, for 1 year in 2023, Malik Washington put up 1,426 receiving yards and made his hay on the Dolphins as a late round pick on kick returns as worked his way into the wide receiver 3 role, right? And these kinds of guys have utility. If you can get your foot in the door, you can make your way onto the field. And LaJohntay Wester is a very electric player. He's a very slippery wide receiver. He can run deep routes. He's not just your short A dot wide receiver. And he is as far as Dynasty, if we're giving out actionable advice, he's a patient hold. He's your deeper league taxi squad. If you can stick him on there, just wait. It's gonna be good with LaJohntay Wester. So as far as like upside expectation, what to expect, I'm not saying he's gonna be your wide receiver 1, but this is just a fine wine that you're gonna appreciate that he's gonna come through. I think at the end of the year, 2 years. I think at the end of this year, you're going to see more snaps for him. By the end of the year, they're going to start understanding how to utilize him more and more and more. He's going to be on the field more. By next year, he's going to be in redraft. He's going to be somewhat of a late round pick, and then he's going to be like a solid wide receiver 3. And I think like most people who play Dynasty, we start on average. The standard right now is about you start 3 wide receivers and like 3, 2, multiple flex spots. That's where you can stick LaJohntay Wester in there. So, I mean, we can talk about guys who are going to be bona fide wide receiver ones, but I think everybody knows who those guys are right now. And I'm trying to provide you guys depth. I'm trying to provide you guys, because I know right now we're in the dead part of summer, the dead part of the offseason. And everybody is scouring their waiver wires right now on whatever app you're using. LaJohntay Wester is probably sitting out there right now. And if you could
100%
on there, absolutely. If you could afford to stick him on there, I'd highly advise doing that.
No, I mean, I think to your point, I think one of the things that's stuck out to me with him is, the Ravens running back coach is Willie Taggart. He was the FAU coach from 2020 to 2022. He knows what this guy's capable of. There's got to be some kind of connectivity there, right? Like, call it continuity, even if you will, where, there was someone who said, hey, this guy's worth taking a look at. And clearly, we saw him catch a long touchdown pass in camp. We saw him, granted, he bobbled it and came down with it, but hey, that's even more impressive, right? He's paying attention. We saw him have a pretty solid rookie camp. So it's not like, as of now, and I'm going to toot the site a little here, but this is where, you can finally look and see the progress of him through camp a little from here. And there hasn't been any bad report on Wester. Now, granted, he's probably not the guy that everyone's looking out for. So maybe the good and the bad is minimum. But when you're making plays that matter, they're always going to get noticed. And he's done it a couple times now. So whether he gets in special teams right out of the gate, and then, I mean, you kind of mentioned it. That's the entry drug, right? And for a guy like this, got to be able to play more than one position. And we've seen so many one-dimensional guys who we think are dynamic flame out because they never even get the chance to get on the field because they can't do anything more. So I love where your head's at with Wester. He seems like someone that could be fun. I mean, we all like those fast. Everyone likes speed, right? NFL coaches, fantasy football managers, you name it. There's something intriguing about it. So I think that is a great guy. To your point, he's probably, I don't have the number in front of me, but I guess he's probably available in 97% of leagues.
Yeah, it's about right. Yeah, that's ballpark. That's probably accurate. And if you think about the Baltimore Ravens, right? Like, even like a guy like Zay Flowers, who, he's a stud, but I mean, in any other offense, I think he'd receive more volume. But I mean, I think they just know how to balance this offense really well. Like, Mark Andrews gets his, Rashad Bateman gets his, Isaiah Likely gets his. Like, everybody gets theirs in this offense at a certain time. As far as fantasy goes, Zay Flowers is the guy, the staple, weapon you want to have for Lamar Jackson. Mark Andrews too, probably. At Mark Andrews. But they do a really good job of getting everybody on the field at a certain point. It's just really hard to determine that. And I will do a better job of trying to figure out who that is on a week-to-week basis during the season. So stick with me. We'll figure that out.
I mean, that's what you're here for, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's move ahead a little here. Sticking with the wide receiver theme, and someone who is on the current city I live in, as some of you might know, is Nashville, Tennessee, and maybe we'll learn something right off the bat here. Maybe a little pronunciation for some people out there. But we're going to talk about wide receiver Chimere Dike. Z, what do we need to know about this kid?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy that you went ahead and said the name first before me, so I could Chimere Dike.
There you go.
Chimere Dike. Okay. So, Chimere Dike, slot receiver out of Florida. Actually, kind of last year he played second fiddle to Elijah Badger, who I thought would get draft capital, but became a UDFA to the Kansas City Chiefs. Very unsettling because I loved Elijah Badger. So, as I was watching Elijah Badger, I noticed DK. DK looked like if I could give one word, very fluid wide receiver. Felt really at home on the routes that he was running. Didn't feel uncomfortable at all. So right now he is behind Tyler. He's projected to be behind Tyler Lockett on the depth chart. He was drafted in the 4th round alongside Alec Ayomanor out of Stanford, who is a bigger athletic freak who will probably end up playing split end.
Hey, real quick on that, Z.
Yeah.
On, like, if we're looking, and I just happen, to catch talk radio here in Nashville every now and then. you know, everyone seems to be on this is not the Tyler Lockett that everyone thinks Tyler Lockett is. Like, his numbers are down year over year. Everything's shrinking. Do you think that's part of why the Titans brought in so many receivers? Like, do you think there's a chance they don't trust that Lockett will produce?
No, I think they trust. I think they trust Lockett. I think their expectations for Lockett aren't where they would have been like 2 years ago, though. I think he began to fell off. I mean, if we're looking at metrics, his yards per route run fell off.
Tremendously.
He just fell off tremendously, right? But he does bring that the veteran presence, and we do have a raw wide receiver room outside of Calvin Ridley. Van Jefferson's there, but Van Jefferson's like a 200-300 yard wide receiver year in and year out over his career.
Sure.
So they needed some stability alongside Calvin Ridley, for Cam Ward, and this is more of a Cam Ward signing than it is anything else. I mean, their first round pick, they want to do it right. I know the Titans get a lot of flack for being, up and down organization. They're not the worst, they don't have the worst reputation, but they're trying to do what's right for Cam Ward. So I believe Tyler Lockett is, and I've written about this and I've said this, multiple times, that he's a symbolic gesture of stability. There isn't very much upside to Tyler Lockett's game, but there is guidance. There is an ability for him to provide chemistry and guidance for the wide receiving team, for Cam Ward. That's what I think Tyler Lockett is there for right now. And I know and DK, I think, is in the same sense. If you look at DK's game and Lockett's game, it's almost the same thing. DK is a hybrid wide receiver. He plays slot and he plays outside. But he's not just, out of the slot, he's not just some short A-dot, 6-7 yard wide receiver. He's not your Josh Downs, if you will. Like, he gets deep. He gets deep. In college, 47.7% of his 24 targets were in the intermediate, which is 0 to 19 yards, right? That's the intermediate level of the field. 53.6% of his targets were in the deep center, 20-plus yards downfield, and he had a 64% catch rate when doing that, right? So he runs, and you can also use him out of that backfield. He's versatile. He's a versatile element, which they don't have right now on that team. I guess Chigo Kwanko might be the most versatile player, and what's that saying, right? So yeah, he brings that element. He is 6'1", 197, not too small, has some length on him. And as far as if we're talking about what Cam Ward does with slot wide receivers, and we could talk about this guy later at Miami. He targeted slot receiver. The slot receiver had the highest target rate in 2024 and 2023. That was Xavier Restrepo, who's now on the team, but signed as a UDFA, got no draft capital. And then in 2022, as in Cam Ward's first year as a starting quarterback, the slot received the second highest target share, right? So he has an affinity for that position. And I'm just using, the information that's out there. I'm trying to put the pieces together.
Absolutely.
And, DK earned the draft capital. I like DK. What can we expect out of him for fantasy football? This year, if he takes over, I know he's getting talk. There's talk of him taking over early in the first quarter of the season. If that happens, let's just say wide receiver 3, PPR wide receiver 3, just to start with a floor, with the upside of wide receiver 2. I think eventually these guys, Alec Ayamanor, DK, and Restrepo, even to an extent, we'll start seeing playing time. As these older veterans start to kind of fade off into obscurity. I think these guys are going to come on. It's going to be really hard to keep these guys off the field. Like, if you want to win games, you have to get these elements on the field. These bring upside. They have speed. They have agility. DK is an athletic freak. Ayomanor is an athletic freak. I mean, you can do amazing things. Hopefully they hone in on the nuances of the game and the game speed during training camp so they can have, good footing on going into the season.
No, 100%. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, what we've seen so far, and, Nick Holt kind of pointed to this, is that we're all still in shorts, right? Like, he gave him a huge call out saying that, he can play all over the place. He's all over the field. But he also, right before that sentence, said, it's easy in shorts. So I think that's always the thing that sometimes we forget, on these early camps. So, you have all these young rookies in Nashville or Tennessee, whatever you want to call it. And I agree with you. If any one of them can find chemistry at the NFL level with Cam Ward, and I do think it's probably one of the more underrated rookie scenarios in the NFL. I thought the value on these picks was all really good as Tennessee was drafting. And I think TJ would completely agree with that. I mean, we had a lot of these guys, and a lot of people had a lot of these guys mocked way higher than when they were actually picked. So it's definitely going to be an interesting year in Tennessee. We're going to take a quick break here, go hear a little call out by our sponsors, and we'll be right back with you guys.
It is a damn shame we only get to do a handful of rookie drafts every season. After doing all this rookie analysis, you want more bites at the apple. And that's why we have the Fast Draft Origins tournament. You draft 6 rookies, the top 4 into your lineup. It's best ball style, and it's just $5 to win a $5,000 first prize. So if you're passionate about Taj Brooks or RJ Harvey, get on Fast Draft and use your favorite creator's code to get a $50 deposit match. A $50 deposit match to go make thousands of dollars drafting the rookies that you know and love.
All right, Matt Kelly eating an apple, telling us about how we love rookies. If you guys want to support us, in the bottom right-hand corner is our promo code 32BW. It is just awesome to be able to keep the rookies. We're here at 32. We're all about what's happening with the rookies. We track them in training camp. Sometimes it's nice to put that to use. And I think a guy who might be worth keeping an eye on is our next guy up here, who is Jacory Croskey-Merritt. Z, what do we need to know about this kid?
Yeah, again, this guy is everybody's favorite rookie. Everybody loves a nice late round rookie pick in their or running back pick in their rookie drafts. Jacory Croskey-Merritt is a fine athlete who should make a home and a name for himself in Washington. Brian Robinson right now, he is due to be a free agent next year. He's never rushed for 1,000 yards in his 3-year career in the NFL. As a matter of fact, he's never rushed for more than 800 yards in his NFL career. He's only had 3 games of 100 yards rushing or more in over 41 career games. This is not. He's been solid. He's been steady. I was a fan of Brian Robinson when everybody hated him coming out of college, but I still think, he just doesn't scream sign extension. This is kind of like a journeyman guy who will go to another team. And for that reason, JCM, he offers so much more explosion and so much more of that explosive element that they just don't have in that backfield right now. They have Austin Eckler, Jeremy McNichols, if he's still on the team, and Chris Rodriguez, if he's still on the team. I mean, it's just wide open. I was asked, or somebody, there was a post on Twitter that said, I think, who is this year's guy? There's always who is this year's whatever it might be. And it said, who is this year's Bucky Irving? And Jacory Croskey-Merritt was my candidate to be Bucky Irving. I'm very high on him. He had a solid 2023 campaign rushing over. I forgot. I didn't make a note of his rushing yards.
It was rock solid.
It was rock solid. It was really, really, really good. His film looks really, really good. He's a great inside tackler runner. I mean, among this year's rookie RB class, among 2024 stats, among this rookie RB class, JCM was 3rd in yards per attempt, 2nd in missed tackle force rate, and 4th in percentage of runs that went for 10 yards or more between the tackles. I mean, this guy is a one-cut runner. And TJ said it himself. TJ knows, right? This guy is a one-cut, get-upfield runner. Speed score is 106.8, which is 87th percentile. Burst score is 132.6, which is 95th percentile. He blows Brian Robinson out of the water as far as athleticism goes. He's out of the water. Again, these are just athletic traits, right? And game speed, again, NFL game speed matters, and understanding how to see the field properly matters. I mean, but I do think JCM has those components and attributes, and I think he can put it together. 2024, he finally got a shot. He went to Arizona State, started 1 game, had 13 rush attempts, managed to put together over 100 yards and score a touchdown. and then he had eligibility issues.
Mhm.
And then I think that's what caused him to fall a little bit in the draft. But it's also that Washington, this was a strong running back class. Washington had other needs. They needed to draft Josh Connolly Jr., offensive tackle from Oregon, and they needed cornerback Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. They also got wide receiver Jalen Lane, who's kind of like a yak hybrid slot wide receiver. And Jalen Lane's an interesting prospect too. We could he could be an honorable mention for this podcast. Jalen Lane, he led the class in percentage of yards after the catch in 2024. That's what he is. He's a yak guy. So we will probably start seeing his name come up. Yeah, but Jacory Croskey-Merritt, fine addition. I think he has a good shot at becoming the starting running back for the Washington Commanders come 2026. It's not a hot take. It's really, honestly, it's a combination of his skill and his abilities and the perfect backfield. It's like a soft backfield. He can just take
100%
completely. Great situation. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think a part of it too is, you see a 24-year-old rookie running back come in, and if you don't know the history, to your point, what do you have? 13, 12 rushes last year? Like,
yeah, 13 rushes
this guy
last year.
Yeah, the guy, so you essentially can negate that immediately. He obviously, put a good amount of, we'll call it wear and tear for lack of a better term, on in 2023. But nothing to be concerned about. The fall was not because of his athletic ability. It honestly was one of the more shocking falls, or if we even want to call it a fall, but just, I felt like he should have been drafted. A couple of people at the Senior Bowl was saying, this is a guy who has third-round talent. And to hear that and, to be around those people that are generally there to support the NFL team that they're drafting with, it's kind of shocking that this kid fell that far. So for whatever reason, we see it every year. This is someone that's great to highlight and keep an eye on. To your point, I mean, all these guys are minimally owned if you have already drafted. I wouldn't be shocked if, JCM's just sitting out there as well on waiver wires. And when you have guys that you have these, I hate to even say this name, but the Kendre Millers of the world, where you're just holding on hope, right? Like, and they're so much more valuable to you because you drafted them and they're your guy and you hang on every report that says their name. Those are the guys, at least in my mind, where I'm saying I'm taking the upside of JCM over some guy that I've been trying to wait to have this happen. There was a lot of Sean Tucker hype really early on this, offseason. I'm like, what? Why am I getting in on Sean Tucker? I'd rather JCM. And Z, if you disagree, please tell me. But those are guys that I'm over. I'm done.
I'm in on Sean Tucker. I'm definitely in on Sean Tucker. Yeah, I'm in. I just picked him. I just found him sitting on on the waivers in one of my leagues. I picked him up. I'm Rachaad White. I think I don't know what Rachaad White's contract is.
I think he's done after this year.
I think he's done after the season. Sean Tucker showed enough, and he had spot starts last year. I think the Saints game, it was him, and I think Bucky Irving. Rachaad White didn't play that game, and Sean Tucker, I think, had a better game than Bucky Irving, or just as good of a game. That's right. Really shined.
I vaguely remember that.
Sean Tucker, he had limited opportunities. There weren't really that many opportunities to go around with Rachaad White and Bucky Irving doing what they were doing. But Sean Tucker made the most out of his opportunities, and I think he came into the league with like a heart condition.
Sounds vaguely familiar as well.
1 year ago. So it was a long road, but he's managed to stick on the roster. And if Rachaad White's gone, I mean, Sean Tucker might be more of a threat to Bucky Irving as a rusher than Rachaad White is, because what Rachaad White does
I'll agree with
what Rachaad White does well is catch the ball. That's what he does. That's what he's always been really. That's what at Arizona, that's what he's great at. And he had a really good receiving profile, and that's what he's still good at in the NFL. But yeah, I'd still be holding on to Sean Tucker. But if I'm trying to figure out who to get right now, I think the path is clear for Jacory Croskey-Merritt as far as getting, outside of injury to Rachaad White or Bucky Irving. I think the path is clear for Jacory Croskey-Merritt to propel himself to the top of that depth chart right now.
So we agree.
We essentially agree. That's a long. I took the long way. I took the scenic route to get to where you're at. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Well, guys, this is Z's first, podcast with us all. We wanted to give you guys some people to keep an eye on. We're gonna do more of these regularly, but we kind of wanted to give you a little taste about what we're all putting together. You're gonna see me on the show. You're gonna see Zach on the show. You'll see TJ on the show, and you'll always see Z on this show. So what a great first episode. As a reminder, please check out 32beatwriters.com, at 32beatwriters on Twitter, at 32beatwriters on YouTube, pretty much at 32beatwriters everywhere. And be sure to give our guy Z a follow at ZKANTZFF on Twitter, and look out for all his great stuff this year. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.